with Ty the Dog Guy on the Daily. I want to talk to you today about laser pointers. So, around the beginning of, I would say maybe not the beginning of my career, but the very beginning of when I owned my own business. So this would probably be 10 or 11 years ago. I got a call from somebody. They had, I want to say 3 Boston Terriers. These were one of my first clients on my own. I'd been working, for other dog training companies for several years, but these were one of my first on my own clients. And on the phone, they're saying, our dogs, chase lights, they chase shadows, they chase any like moving sort of light disturbance, whether it's a shadow, a light. Excuse me, sorry. Got bad air here in Utah. And their dogs kind of manically chased it. So cars would drive down the road and it would cast a shadow, and the dogs would chase and bark at the shadow like manically, maniacally. What's the right word there? Someone would open a door and that would make a reflection, and the dogs would see the reflection on the wall and freak out. And so it was a big problem because like numerous times a day, the dogs would just lose their gourd, just get out of their freaking mind, right? And so, sitting in their house, I was like, shoot, how did this happen? What instigated this? And as it turns out, their son, teenage kid, I believe he was, again, this was 11 years ago or so, teenage kid had brought home a laser pointer from school, and he just started playing with it. And they didn't think anything of it. I wouldn't have either at the time. But he started playing with it, and the dogs, as you see people do with cats and dogs, they'll use the laser pointer and they'll shine it around the room, and the dogs chase it, and people, oh, it's funny, the dog's chasing it, he's getting exercise, stuff like that. I've seen some people even take it out in the yard and, back and forth in the yard, and the dog like runs back and forth, and they're like, cool, the dog's getting exercise. Well, in these dogs' case, one of the dogs, 2 of the dogs, 3 dogs, someone picked up the idea that chasing lights, is kind of fun, and it became obsessive, it became compulsive, and it became this big problem where the dogs would chase, like I say, any light, any shadow, any sort of light type disturbance type thing. So that was the first time I saw it, 10, 11, 12 years ago, whenever that was. Now, I wouldn't have thought a whole lot about it, except since then, I've seen it a couple dozen more times. A couple dozen more times where someone brings, it's always like the kid, right? It's always the teenage son that brings home the laser pointer and starts causing this problem. But, someone brings home a laser pointer, they start playing with it, and the dogs get these compulsive behaviors, and, it turns into, now, to this day, these Boston Terriers were probably the worst that I've ever seen. But I've seen plenty of dogs get this obsessive compulsive behavior, and it's a hassle. It's no fun, right? So this is kind of my podcast / vlog telling you don't play with laser pointers with your dog. As fun as it might be. Now, you might be like, well, my neighbor plays with a laser pointer with his dog, and his dog is fine, which, if I was my mom, what I would say to that is like, well, if your neighbor jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too? But I'm not going to say that. I'll leave that up to my mom. But that was what she always said when we were growing up. Well, my friend does it. Well, if your friend jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too? Anyways, there's dogs that I'm sure can play with a laser pointer. Maybe even the majority can play with a laser pointer and never have a problem. But of the dogs that do play with laser pointers, it can turn into such a big problem that there's no reason to risk it, because there's no benefit in playing with the laser pointer. There's a million other ways to exercise your dog, so there's no net benefit, and there's a potential downfall. Now, if your dog is one that's crazy over the laser pointer and you need to fix it, I'll tell you what we did with these Bostons and what I've done since then with every dog that I've encountered. Its structure and its rules, that's about it. So when the dogs, we taught the dog to go to their bed and stay, to lie down and stay. We taught the dog what no meant. Simple as that, right? I mean, obviously it was a lot of work, but, if the dogs were going nuts, we would correct it, and then we would simply have them go to their bed or lie down. Not as a punishment to lie down, but simply, to get them thinking differently and to get them, to calm down. And so obedience and structure won the day, and it's won the day with every dog that I've ever worked with on that note. But yeah, like I say, better not to get into that problem in the first place.